I have a paper towel cardboard roll here, and I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to mark every ½ inch . Got every ½ inch marked. I'm going to flatten this a little bit, and I'm going to cut at every marking. Now, if you have trouble cutting straight lines, what you can do is mark the ½ inch at every top and bottom, like that. And that will help guide you to where you need to start and end. I've cut up all my cardboard here, and I've got 22 pieces total. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set aside 4 pieces first. Those are going to be my leaves. And then I'm going to separate the rest into piles of 6. And each pile, there should be 3 piles of 6, and these are going to be my flowers. And so you want to pick a paint for your flowers. I'm going to use pink, purple, and yellow, but you can choose any color you want. I'm just going to put a little paint out, and if you don't have your palette, you can actually just put it directly on your brush too. And let's test out a spot here first. Grab some of that paint and apply it directly to your cardboard. Now, depending on the paint you're using, some paints may not work very well on this. Crafting paint is perfect for this because it's got some adhesive to it, and the colors will be a little bit brighter. You want to use acrylic paint. If you're painting and you notice that your paint is not as bright as you'd like, you may want to add a layer of white paint first, because the cardboard is brown, so that is going to make your paint just a little bit darker. I've painted 6 pieces pink, and I'm going to rinse my brush before I move on to the next color, and I will dry my brush thoroughly as well. And I will move on to purple. I've painted 6 yellow, 6 purple, and 6 pink, and I have 4 left, and I'm gonna paint these green. Now, I wanted these to be sap green, but I don't have a sap green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this Thylacine green with my yellow, and that is going to give me a sap green. I've thoroughly mixed my green with my yellow, and I'm closer to the color I want to use, so I'm going to use this to paint my last 4 pieces. I have a 16 by 10 piece of canvas paper here that I am taping down to a board. Now, you don't have to use canvas paper. You can use the appropriate paper for the paint that you want to use. I'm sticking with acrylic paint, and I've decided to use canvas paper. But if you want to use a different type of paint, like maybe watercolor, you can always use watercolor paper instead. So the reason why I'm taping the sides down is because it will keep my paper in place when I paint, and also it creates a really nice border around the painting. So I have painter's tape here, and what I've done is I've taped all around, And to keep that border a little even, what I do is I rip off a piece of tape, and then I go from that side and I move just a little bit over the paper, and then I just tape it down. And so what I'm going to do next is, before I start painting on the actual canvas paper, I'm just kind of gonna lay out and get an idea of what I'm going to do. But it looks like I have plenty of space for my flowers on my canvas. And what I can do here is I can kind of decide right now where I want the grass to start. So I want the grass to start underneath the flower. I've got my pink flower here. I want to start a little bit underneath that. So I'm just gonna mark that space right now, and then kind of just set these aside. I can measure to see how long this is from the bottom. It's a little bit less than 2 inches. Let's just make it a perfect 2 inches here so I can mark the exact spots. I'm going to also mark 2 inches here and 2 inches here. And I'm just going to make a light line of where that is. And that way when I paint, I know where I'm going to paint the grass. I have a few different blues here, and I've laid them out from dark to light, and these are more aqua, so they have some green in them, but I thought it'd be nice to vary the colors of the sky, so I'm gonna go kind of from dark to light here, but you really can do whatever you want. You can make the sky purple, yellow, you can make it whatever color you like. So I'm just gonna take my darker blue and I'm going to make a line right here at the top. And then I've got a aqua, and I'll make a line right here with that. And then I've got this sky color. Now this doesn't pour as easily. Okay. And then this one is a shimmer aqua. I'm just gonna pour that down here close to the grass. And this looks like it might not pour as well, so I can always take like a popsicle stick, or I've got a palette knife here, and just apply some with my palette knife. So I have a larger brush here. This is probably about 1 inch, but you can go with a 2 inch too. It really depends on how big your paper or canvas is. It's easier to use a larger brush when you've got a large canvas. That way, you know, it doesn't take you forever to cover the canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the light aqua here, and I'm just going to brush back and forth. Kind of just covering the space there. And then as I got that kind of covered, I'm going to slowly hit the sky color, and I'm going to, as you can see, I'm going to go back and forth between the sky and the aqua and kind of let that blend just a little bit. See, I'm kind of working down a little bit to allow that to blend. And once that's kind of blended, I can move up a little more and get more of the area covered. It looks like I got a good amount of sky color going here. So I'm just going to mix that in a little bit more. And then I'm going to keep moving on to my next aqua color that's a little bit darker, and start allowing that to mix. and kind of moving it down just a little bit to mix it with the sky color. And it looks like I may have used a little bit too much of this aqua. I've got a lot left over, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start working right into the darkest color now. And mix those a little bit. Now what I can do is, because I've got a good amount, when you have a little too much paint, what I can do is I can work slowly and get some of the darker paint into the light here. And then I'm going to wipe off my paintbrush. It's got just a little bit too much paint. Get that kind of dry. And then kind of start over here. And just kind of mix those up a little more. Get it a little bit softer if I can. Just trying to not have the brush marks show as much. If you've still got too much paint, you can wipe that off more. So I'm good with the colors of my sky. I'm going to rinse my brush now and probably wipe it off just to make sure I get all that paint off. I wanted to mix again some green with yellow because this green is so dark and I wanted a lighter green. So I've mixed up my paint. I've got a little extra on my palette knife. I'm just going to wipe it on my canvas and then wipe my palette knife off. Make sure that paint doesn't dry on my palette knife. I'm going to take some of my yellow and just apply just a couple spots here, the top. I want the top just to be a little bit lighter. I'm going to get my brush, make sure it's dried off. And then I'm going to grab some of that green paint and just start working that right in. And just slowly kind of touch the yellow. I'm going to give this 10 minutes to dry. Acrylic paint dries really quickly, but I still want just to make sure that it's dry before I start laying down my flowers. My paint is fully dry and I've laid out all my flowers exactly how I want to glue them. And now I'm gonna just kind of mark with my pencil right in the center so I remember that's where the middle of my flower is going to be. And then I can also kind of just draw out a line of where I'm going to have the stem. And you can think about if you want your stem a little curved, or if you just want it perfectly straight. Now I'm taking a smaller pointed brush. I've got more green and yellow and I'm just going to mix that up again, and this time I'm putting a little less yellow, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in my stems, and you might kind of have to just move your pieces a little bit. So I've got some regular school glue here. Now you can also use hot glue or some other fast drying glue. But basically what I want to do is I want to put a little glue at the ends here, and it may be easier to just take a Q-tip. If it's hard for you to control the amount of glue that comes out for some reason, You can use a dish and just dip it in, or you can use a Q-tip and apply it using the Q-tip. And just place it down where you want to glue it. So I'm going to go through each of these and glue it down, glue each one down. I've put all my petals on, and I'm just getting a Q-tip and cleaning up some of the glue here because I think I put a little too much on this particular flower. So I'm just going to clean that up just a little bit. Now I'm just going to come back and paint all my petals inside, and I can also paint them a different color a little bit. So I've painted this petal, and I also have just a tiny bit of white paint here. I can just grab a little bit of that white paint and just brush this way from the inside out. I've got one layer down on my yellow petals, and I decided to do a second layer because you can see the blue paint through the yellow. For this yellow one, I'm going to add just a little bit of orange to the center and paint outwards, similar to how I did the white for the pink flower. I've also painted my purple flower now, and I'm going to add a little pink to the center of that flower for each petal. And you can also paint, if you've got a little space in between here, you can paint that part too. So I'm almost done here. Now I'm just painting in each leaf, and you can always add a little more texture to each leaf by drawing in some veins with some dark paint, some dark green paint. So I'm done with my painting, and now I'm just taking the painter's tape off. You want to take the tape off slowly and kind of pull it at an angle off the paper. That way you don't end up tearing your paper or your painting.